And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Friday, April 21st, third hour Friday. You know what happens. It's what just happened. We have three great people who've returned. Alex Berg is back, activist, journalist, director, and producer of a documentary series, Authentic Voices of Pride for the LGBTQ nation. Recently the host of Lambda Legal's inaugural podcast, Making the Case. Alex, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you. Doing all right. Glad to be here.
Good to see you. Also back, my friend Atheer Yacoub, stand-up comic. You may have seen her on Access TV's Gotham Comedy Live, co-host of No Fly List podcast. She's been on Comedy Central Arabia with a special, and a brand new comedy album just out, Denied Entry. Atheer, congratulations on the album. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And also back, our friend Keith Price, comedian, actor, podcaster, comedy daddy, radio talk show host, and guest critic for New York One on Stage. Keith, good to see you.
Hello, Habibi. How are you, darling?
I'm doing fine. Good to have you back on. By the way, today, it's Eid Mubarak to Atheer. It's the end of Ramadan, so happy Eid. And our goal, Atheer and my goal, is by the end of the show, one of you converts to Islam. That's how it works.
Oh, wow.
You choose whichever one of you want. Like you can
wow.
You can do you can do like a visitation thing. 50% Islam, 50%
like a timeshare.
Like timeshare religion.
Okay.
A Muslim timeshare.
My family's already part Christian and part Jewish. So to me, I'm like, let's bring another one into the mix. You know, I can be 33% of everything.
Why not? You got to hedge your bets with heaven, you know? You got to.
Exactly.
I'm not going to lie and say that I do not have a taste for a hot Arab man every now and then. How you doing? So, you know, whatever I can do to like up the game, you just give a brother a hail out. You know
so
what I'm saying?
Keith wants prizes. Keith wants prizes to join Islam, like it's a club. Keith, and guess what? You get two men when you join us today. So
good. As long as they're not virgins, I'm good to go. You know what I'm saying?
that's the women bar. That does not. So, and Alex, you're going to be all the manifestations of the Abrahamic faiths. Then after this, you'll be all three.
Judaism. Yeah, that's right.
You can do a lecture tour. This is really great stuff for you.
I love that for me. Love that.
Me and Atheer are going to huddle up and decide who we want to join the club.
Yeah. It's a very easy club to join.
Just say one sentence. Just say one sentence in Arabic, literally, and you're in. I'm not even kidding. That's how you convert to Islam. It's like, Atheer, do you want to say the sentence for people?
Very low bar, very low barrier
Atheer,
to entry.
Do you know the sentence? Can you?
Of course, I've been. My boyfriend's been practicing it. So every week he's like, what am I supposed to say again?
Can you repeat it just so everyone listens?
Ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah.
Oh, that's it. So anyone who repeats it at home, it's like the movie Candyman, but a Muslim shows up.
Yeah, exactly. And you turn into it.
And all you said is you want to translate it before I mangle it, even though I understand it?
Yeah. So it just means I witness that there is no other God but Allah, and and I also witness that Prophet Muhammad is his messenger.
That's the Rasulullah. So exactly. So you hear all the things. There you go, guys. You're all in the club. Come aboard, everyone. So put away. It's turkey bacon and 4 wives for everybody. This is how we go. No, we're not doing the wives thing. So let's talk about something that, you know what? I love technology. Let me just say at the outset. So when new things happen, when I see robots and people are like, I'm like, oh, look how cool. And I've been so down with even the idea of artificial intelligence until 60 Minutes did a segment on Sunday. And I watched it. And I had to read the transcript over. And I have some of the alarm that other people have before. And it's not the alarm like my parents, like the VCR is flashing 12 and they have no idea what's going on, that kind of alarm. It's more like and I'll just read a little. They interviewed the head of Google and they created their AI versions called Bard, B-A-R-D, like Shakespeare, the Bard. And they had a moment where they talked about the mysterious part of AI is these things called emergent properties, where AI is teaching itself things that they were never taught by human beings. One thing, somehow it started learning Bangladesh and was translating other things. And I'm like, and the head of Google goes, you don't fully understand it. And you can't quite tell why it's doing it, but we call it a black box. I call it slightly alarming. Like you've created a creature that it can't think, but it can do things you haven't programmed it. And you're like, and everyone's like, I guess that's fine. I've seen movies. I've seen Terminator. I've seen The Matrix. Anyone else? So, Alex, what about you? Any concerns about this AI?
I don't be able to teach itself to be smarter than me and do whatever bad things it's going to do. But I have to say, I'm both terrified of the AI itself. I think it holds actually like a lot of interesting possibilities for creatives and people who want to use it in new and innovative ways. But I'm not just terrified of the technology, like learning and growing and eclipsing whatever human beings can do, but I'm actually afraid of the way that human beings will use it, because I feel like we have clearly shown that we are bad actors when it comes to using any kind of cool new technology. So I feel like it's kind of both things. It's like, how are we going to find ways to have some like bad corporate ownership of the new technology who's going to use it to do bad things? So I'm like a little afraid of it all, but also I've seen creative people use it in really interesting ways. Like I've seen filmmakers use ChatGPT and other forms of AI to create, like, build out their filmmaking worlds, and people use it in like other creative fields. So I'm having all the feelings about it, I guess.
That's very interesting. So Keith is actually an AI generated image today. It's not really Keith Price. So AI,
I'm my own Max Headroom right now. For those, again, more references.
Waiting.
Go, Dollar.
That's a long time ago. All right. So Atheer probably has no idea Max Headroom. It was a thing from the 80s or the 90s. I can't remember. Everything to me is the 80s and not. People say things. I go, I guess the 80s. I don't know. So
At what point did I stop remembering? Right?
Exactly.
Keith, what about you? Is the prospect of what AI could do that great that you're like, okay, fine? Or is it what Alex is saying? It's like human beings. Like AI is not inherently bad. It's just a machine. It's a technology.
Well, it's like every piece of technology that we benefit in a great way from, there's always the downside of what happens when the evil, corporate whomever, that makes the bad decision in the boardroom, we won't tell the rest of the world that we can do these horrible things. Like I think that is what we are as human beings. And so we can't ever get that bad actor influence that you were saying out of it. But what scares me is that it's sort of like, we don't, you recognize that this machine has done something that you didn't program it to do, and now it's doing it, and you're surprised that it happened, like, whoa, that's crazy, and not thinking of, like, what does that mean in the long term? Like, what's going to be the next weird thing that it's going to decide to learn on its own, until we are living in this crazy, psychotic Terminator 2 world. And the only thing that I can say is that if I'm lucky enough, I won't live long enough to care. And so,
I think it's coming.
I don't want to be the jaded old, I don't want to be that jaded old guy, but like, if people are not going to stop and do the reflection and realize that this has the potential of being a really bad thing, and pump the brakes enough to like assess what really is going on and what really can happen, and think about what would happen if this does fall into the hands of a so-and-so. Like, we've already seen those things where people are doing those AI versions of like Tom Cruise and having them make all those weird speeches and stuff. It's like, so it's already escalated to that place where it is, they can already do damage to people. So now we're watching not only we as human beings using it to do damage to people, and then it's learning Bangladesh on its own. Come on, like let's.
We didn't program it. It's just too.
Yeah, it just decided. Bangladesh. That's the language I want this week. I mean, so like I said, it's fabulous to look at, and it's wonderful to see that we can progress that way. But at the same time, it's like, pump the brakes a minute, because that's kind of strange. It just decided it's going to learn another language. Like,
I all of a sudden, and I'll tell you, and Atheer, the head of Google, was on 60 Minutes, said in defense of it, well, we don't fully understand it, but we don't fully understand the human mind. Yeah, but you didn't make the human mind.
No.
You made this, and you don't know what it can do. Like, no, like, help us before it's over.
That's the scariest part, is that all of these like tech people themselves are like, oh, I don't know, this could get out of hand. Maybe we should stop. So the fact that, and yes, like Keith said, this is literally the plot of every sci-fi scary movie. I'm like, what
here
are
it
you
is.
doing?
This is it.
It's this is happening. They're like, oh, we don't know. And also, I mean, I guess it's very smart in adapting and being able to learn Bangladesh. But if it was really smart, it would learn like Cantonese or something, because
it probably does that in 8 minutes.
I mean, but it's coming. Maybe it's just going down the list alphabetically.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
They learned AI, Bangladesh. See, Cantonese. Yeah, there you go.
It's coming.
It's
Castilian Spanish.
I'd like
we
to
can
be
pick it all up.
Like an AI dean who could do research for the show for me and just hand it to me. Or during Ramadan, AI dean fasts, so I look like a good Muslim finally, where I'm not fasting. But what about Alex? This was another weird quirk. They asked the guy from Google asked Bard, the AI, to give him information about inflation. And it wrote a whole article and cited 5 books. Then they went and looked, and none of those 5 books exist, but it did it confidently. And and I love this, they have a term for this. They call this an hallucination. That's a term in the industry. We would call it lying, but that's like Donald Trump, big hallucinator. So the idea is, so they don't even the thing is programmed and it's supposed to give you real information. It's literally making up books with titles and everything in an article. And then you have to go Google it, use Google, ironically, to fact check a Google AI to go those books don't even exist. Again, adding to the concern.
Honestly, that part, I was like, maybe it is more human than we all thought it was, because it's a clown. It's lying to them. Like, it thinks it's making up, fabricating stuff and lying. I was like, all right, maybe this AI is actually more in the human image than we all anticipated, if it's literally going to make up the sourcing for these books. I was like, AI, you're a clown when I saw that part of that segment.
It is Elon Musk of AI. So we'll talk about later.
Exactly.
He's such an ass. What a I didn't have an opinion on him a couple of years ago. Then I started during COVID and I wrote about him when SNL invited him to host. And I wrote he doesn't deserve to host SNL. It wasn't like canceled. I'm like, he doesn't deserve it. This is not a good guy. And now he's really showing himself. So I'm telling you, Alex Berg, Atheer Yacoub, and Keith Price. So I want to talk about, in 2016 campaign, Muslims, we were about the number one target of Donald Trump, us and immigrants, Hispanic, but Muslims a lot. He did the whole thing, ban Muslims. In 2024, it's very clear. It's the community you two guys are in. It's the LGBTQ community that is now the focus of the Republicans in the same ways, like they painted Muslims as somehow we were inherently dangerous and a threat, and they were going to pass anti-Sharia legislation. Remember that, Atheer? Their anti-Sharia legislation, when they were always plotting to introduce their own law, impose their own law as religion anyway.
That's the only time that they're against that they're for separation of church and state. It's mosque and state. But when it comes to church, they're like, they don't see the parallels there of imposing their own religious beliefs, and just how that's in direct conflict of the Constitution. And besides the fact that obviously it's a double standard, and if the roles were reversed or if it was Islamic law, I mean, women can't even express their religious whatever clothing without being harassed. So we're not making it to LGBTQ rights.
And you know what? And they're going backwards. ACLU had a really good but alarming article about 3 weeks ago. Over 400 bills have been introduced in the state legislature that are anti-LGBTQ, which is double all that was introduced last year by Republicans in the state legislature. And a lot had to do with drag shows and transgender teens, but nearly 40 had to do with carving out exceptions to the anti-discrimination law. So they can say to Keith and to you, Alex, that we don't want you here. We don't want to serve you, your type, your kind. And this is so deeply alarming to me that the GOP is literally, I think, emboldened by overturning Roe v. Wade. Like, look, we turned the clock back on that. We gutted the Voting Rights Act. So now we're coming to you guys. And in Iowa, by the way, they introduced legislation to overturn marriage equality, which is unconstitutional, but that's where they're going. They're telling you. So let me start with you, Alex, as someone who's an activist in this area. How concerned are you?
I'm extremely, extremely alarmed. I think that also what you said about basically gutting any protections that we also had, there's sort of two things happening, which is passing all of these really reprehensible bills that are really an assault on the autonomy of LGBTQIA people in every possible way you could imagine. But then also gutting any kind of way we would have of responding to these things as well is very frightening. And then I also think, having worked in this space for a while, we've seen kind of the slow increase in bills year by year. So I have to say, this really is not a surprise to me at all. And also, all of these things are so cyclical. I think just with the history of America in terms of the way that we see racism, or we see religious oppression, or the way that we see narratives about LGBTQ people, hateful narratives, you think the very idea that LGBTQ people are targeting children. I mean, you could look back to the 80s and 90s. It's like they're basically taking the same rhetoric and just kind of recycling it and refreshing it now. And I think that also over the past 10 to 15 years, as we've specifically seen trans folks get more visibility, everybody remembers Laverne Cox's cover of Time magazine, The Transgender Tipping Point. I think that that conservatives understood how to respond to gay people, but they didn't understand how to exactly target trans people. And I think that now they have learned how to really scare their base, and to otherize trans people. I think initially, I remember covering issues around gender in like the 2010s, and you would talk to like Christian conservatives, and they couldn't really articulate what they thought was wrong with being trans, because they didn't understand. They just saw it as a gender issue. They didn't see how it was exactly tied to the larger LGBT community. But I think now they've really figured out how to target it and scare their base, and also kind of like expand the rhetoric around gay people being creepy with kids, now extending it to trans people.
And yet last night I had on Yamara Jones, who's the CEO of Translash, to talk about what's going on, and it is truly alarming. So Keith, what's your reaction? I mean, just this week in Florida, they passed legislation in the House, it's going to go to the Senate, where they'll allow the government to come in and take kids away from parents if they're getting gender affirming care. And this is unreal what is going on.
It's unreal what's going on, but what's even more unreal is that we're letting it happen without any serious, like, no fucking way should this be going on kind of energy. Like, the conversational things of trying to discuss this and have a debate and talk to people and try to get them to understand. It's like, honestly, that shit's over. Because now you're talking about going into people's homes. One of the things that, these Republicans are the first to tell you about, don't tell me what to do in my house. Don't tell me to take my guns. And you're going to take the government and use it to go in and take people's children away from them because you don't believe in whatever it is that you don't fucking believe. To me, I am so, first of all, stop. I'm sorry for swearing, but it just infuriates me because we are spending, listening to these idiots walk around trying to justify hatred and justify their own fears of shit that they don't understand or don't choose to understand. And that's where we are. And so if we're going to continue to let these people walk around choosing to not understand that this is what's happening in the world around them, and they choose not to do that, then you're going to fucking get squashed, because I'm tired. I'm just tired. And it's like I said before, gay people have always been a target.
Yep.
And I not to do that. It was my birthday this week, but I have been alive now long enough to have seen a lot of shit happen because people are just gay. I grew up in Texas. Let me tell you something. I saw a lot of shit happen to people that was just gay. I saw a lot of stuff that happened to people just because they were Black. I mean, I have lived to see the pieces of what hatred can do, and this racism and this sickness that we seem to have in this country that keeps going unchecked. And it's like, we are going unchecked because everyone is so afraid of just saying what needs to be said, and that this shit has to stop. It just has to stop. And we have to figure out a way to stop coddling these people that feel, that lose their shit because some wonderful trans person who I didn't even know was on one beer can, and they lost their entire world because it gave them something to do. And that kind of grandstanding should have been squashed from the very beginning. And it's like, stop being so stupid and stop being so irrational and stop justifying your behavior behind a God that you don't even fucking believe in. And don't talk about the practices of these Christians, because you're not acting like a freaking Christian. You're acting like a psychotic animal, and you need to be put down if you're going to keep acting this way. That's how I feel about it.
Keith Price laying it out. How you feel? It's interesting. Years ago when we were trying to combat anti-Muslim bigotry, the big call was have more Muslims on TV. Let people know us. I see countless conversations now in transgender community, and there's no one transgender on the panel on cable news. There's someone from the LGBT community more broadly, but not a transgender person.
Right.
Talk about to put a human face. So like Atheer, I still start my show every day saying, I want to be your MBFF, your Muslim best friend forever, because whole show, if you know a Muslim, you like us more. Now, it really is. There's been a downtick objectively in anti-Muslim hate as of the last year or so. And that's a lot because politicians aren't ginning it up. So people are just going back to them. They might not like us, but they're not going to attack us. They're like,
but because they also know that they can't attack you anymore with that same rhetoric. So what do? They switch the train and let's go back to the gay people, but we can't do the regular gay people. We, because they got their marriage thing happening. So we're going to try, oh my gosh, the drag queens. We completely forgot about the drag queens. Let's go after them. Let's scare these trans people and their children. It's just, they just figure out a new way to do it. I'm sorry, Dean. I didn't mean to jump in, but it just,
this is look, this is you and Alex, this is your community directly, but we want to be allies. And, Atheer, what more, look, in the Muslim community years ago, younger Muslims were fine in America about marriage equality, or I didn't hear much pushback except for online here and there. Now it's kind of faded. I don't know what is, I don't know, transgender, it's even talked about in the Muslim community. Do you ever hear anyone talking about it, Atheer?
Well, I know we do talk about it because we talked about it a little bit like in Iran, which was like an interesting, take, and like how Muslims, I've talked about it with my mom, which,
what'd she say?
She was like, because I've been trying to talk to her about, gay rights and everything for years. And I think a lot of people, like, they just don't understand, right? The first thing that they say, it's really out of ignorance. And then when you explain it to them, it's funny how people can say it's basically like telling you to not listen to your body. So if you tell somebody who's I would say Islamophobic, homophobic or transphobic, they're like, it's a choice. I'm like, okay, did you choose to be straight? Do you feel like the gender that you were born into? Like, can you imagine? And they're like, yeah. So they can see it from their perspective, but they can't understand what it would feel like to somebody not, be feeling that way towards, their own gender, or, again, saying that, being gay is a choice. Like, well, if being straight isn't a choice, then why would being gay? But anyway, none of these people can argue any logic because there's no logic or reason. And as far as like taking kids away from parents who are, taking them to drag shows, like I feel like you should take kids away from these people who are teaching them hatred and stuff, because they're going to grow up to be the people that we need to protect ourselves from. So if anybody needs to have their kids taken away into a safer, more tolerant environment, it's these very people.
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing, is that everything conservatives accuse LGBTQ people of doing is actually what is happening, what conservatives are doing to their own kids and in their own lives. Like, all of the cases of sexual assault, not drag queens, not trans folks, it is just always
these cis white gendered men.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And so it's so much hypocrisy. And then also, I think it speaks to the fact that they have no policy ideas. They have no plans for actually how they're going to materially improve everyday Americans' lives. So instead of actually talking about policy or any substance, or actually, I guess this is a tactic to avoid talking about how they're actually going to make everybody's lives worse by taking away Social Security and any kind of social safety net that already exists here. They're just focusing on this particular issue because they have nothing else to talk about.
Exactly. And as long as those people that are ginning up with them to get behind all of this stupid shit that they keep proposing and not paying attention to the fact that they're going to lose their Social Security, they're going to lose their health care, they're going to lose whatever few SSI benefits or whatever thing, that the same people that they're helping carry on this nonsense with are the same people that are going to get back at you. And it's like, so for me, it's like, you can't keep chasing stupid. Like, it's like, and it's like, and how do you tell people who like they've invested their whole emotional, essence in behind this foolishness? Because if they have to not do that anymore, then that means they have nothing else to focus on. So like, again, it's like, I'm going to go with this charge because it gives me something to do, and I don't have to think about these other things that actually are very important in my life that concern me and those same people that I'm trying to oppress. Like, it is a horrible selfish cycle that I don't think these people are willing to get out of until they get squashed. And that's what has to happen.
You also, speaking of selfish, the one thing that reminded me of is that I've been tweeting a lot about this, and I really, in particular, want cishet white women to understand that laws targeting trans people are actually really terrible for every single person.
Exactly.
If you look at the way that a lot of this rhetoric is being weaponized, especially around trans women in sports, if you look at just the variance of what it means to be a woman among cis women is huge. And so the thing about a lot of these laws against trans folks is that they're actually going to police every single person who is not performing their gender in whatever the normative expectation of that is. So this is really bad for all of us, because it means that everybody who is not normative is going to be targeted, which means any marginalized person is going to be especially under a microscope with all of these laws. They're really terrible for everyone. And that's kind of the point, is to keep womanhood, to keep manhood, to keep gender as this kind of moving target, so that none of us can ever fit or achieve it.
To have your own personhood. And that's, to deny people their own personhood is how you keep them enslaved.
It's Atheer. So, Alex makes an interesting point, because they just passed yesterday in the House a bill not to provide federal funding for any school that's allowing transgender athletes to play on their team. And they did it, the girls' protection bill, women's protection thing. So we're supposed to believe, Atheer, that the people who are banning abortion and forcing women who are raped to carry a fetus to term care so much about women that they're going to keep transgender women from playing in sports. That's
the real predator.
Right, and because these guys who are passing laws that ban abortion, knowing it's going to kill women, literally, as experts have talked about, when you force maternal mortality goes up when you force someone to carry a fetus to term. It's going to go up because we have the highest of all developed nations. Be proud, America. Look what we've done. So, Atheer, do you feel good? Do you feel like they got your back? Like these Republicans are really worried about women's rights. They also oppose equal pay for women when it comes to men. So
we always need men to speak for us, to fight our battles for us, and to make decisions for us, because most importantly, no, I mean, the irony is not lost on me, but it definitely is on them. And it's kind of like the AI thing. It's like, okay, it's like we start with this, you start pulling the thread. Then what? This is like already gotten way out of control, where we're trying to like put the cat back in the bag. And it's just this trickle down effect of hatred that, it seeps into every community. So everybody should care about each other's struggles, because, if we unified, then we would be the majority. But that's part of why we need, to be allies also with, obviously the gay community, LGBTQ, and vice versa. Everyone's struggle is a struggle that, Republicans probably don't give a shit about. So at least we have that in common.
Right. But my thing is sort of like, there's that thing about critical thinking that I just wish, and it's a very simple, it is simple. It's like, let's see. There's a group of people that are opposing a whole other set of people from having any kind of rights whatsoever, while you are being able to have rights for yourself. Now, does that seem fair? No, that doesn't seem fair. Therefore, you should try to do what's right for everybody so that everyone has equal rights. And it's like, wow, like, what a concept that we can't seem to grasp as a nation. So what the hell? What are we going to do? Like I said, I'm going to live long enough and hope to make it to the end, and pray for the generation behind me, because I don't know what to do for you.
Throw your hands up.
Because again, it's because if I do it the way that I think it would work, I'm going to go to jail.
I know, I could sense that.
You know what I'm saying?
Not good. Not good.
And it's not. And there's already enough Black people in jail, so I don't want to add to that number too. You know what I'm saying?
But if you have internet privileges, you can still be on the show from jail. Just saying, if they let you do in the library, Keith Price coming to us live from Rikers.
Live from Rikers. Are you kidding?
All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back, and Atheer Yacoub is going to perform excerpts of her new comedy album. No, she's not going to. So, when we come back, she's going to tell us a little bit about it, because it's brand new, and I want to share it with people. So let's take a break. We'll be back with more of what just happened right here on the Dean Obeidallah Show right after this. And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. It remains Friday, April 21st, and Alex Berg, Atheer Yacoub, and Keith Price are still here. So, Atheer, you have your first comedy album out. This is very exciting. Before just plugging it at the end, tell you don't have to perform anything. I'm kidding. You're like a daughter. No, go ahead, Atheer, you do the joke for them. Come on, be funny. My Atheer is so funny. Come on. Good joke. No,
except my parents would be like, don't tell any joke. Except
don't tell a joke. Talk about being a nutrtionist.
Right. So, right. So yes, my album, You're Killing with Keith.
He's my target audience.
Yes, it comes out Monday with Comedy Records, and it's going to be streaming on Sirius XM and also Spotify and all the streaming channels. I'll be posting videos and clips on my Instagram, but it's called Denied Entry, and it talks, it's the story of a Palestinian Muslim growing up between Palestine and Alabama and moving to New York and dating and all that fun stuff. I hope my parents never hear it because they are in it. But
Wow.
they don't really know how to use the internet, so nobody showed them. And yeah, so everybody but my parents listened to Denied Entry on Monday.
And I look forward to it. I'm gonna see if Sirius XM will let me hear it somewhere. If not, are you gonna post? You have to pay for it, right?
No, I think like you have to pay for obviously on Sirius XM, but you don't have to pay for it on like Spotify or however you stream normally.
Okay.
Like music.
I'm gonna listen to it. I'm looking forward to hearing that, learning more about Atheer. Even though I've known you for like how many years? I don't even know how many years.
I know, like 10 years now.
Maybe, yes. And Atheer's growing up. She's opening. Who are you opening for?
Hari Kondabolu. We're going to Vermont next. So we're going to a
Nice.
few Burlington, Brattleboro, and another city around there. So
He's a good guy. Please say hi to him.
I
He was in
will,
the
I
Big
will.
Brown. He was in the Big Brown comedy shows a long time ago.
Yeah.
He's
He
good.
actually he just had an album drop as well. So
Is it called
like
Big
it.
Brown Comedy Show? No,
It's called Vacation Baby.
Vacation Baby. Oh, that's right. I saw it because I'm on his Instagram. I can't get more Instagram follow. If you're on Instagram, please follow me. I'm just needy. Like the number is stuck. I think it's broken. I'm pretty sure Instagram is broken because I'm stuck at the exact same amount of Instagram followers now for like 3 months. I'm like, I'm not even losing people. Like that's it. I've hit my thing.
Plateaued.
That's it.
Plateaued.
So let's talk about, all right, social media. Elon Musk, awful person, and took away my blue check, which it doesn't matter to me because all my friends lost their blue checks at the same time. So I'm like, fine. It's a little weird to see some people with blue checks. I'm like, are you paying? Because I don't want to pay Elon Musk. He's going to use that money to blow up more rocket ships, right? So I don't want that. You can't do that. So Elon Musk, his SpaceX Starship, it was the biggest spaceship ever. It took off. He was bragging, took off and exploded 4 minutes in to the launch. Nobody was on it. Is it wrong to cheer when Elon Musk suffers a setback? I mean, tell me, like, is there something deeply wrong? Is it Schadenfreude? Is that the right term?
Schadenfreude, yeah.
Schadenfreude. Like, I don't like the guy. First of all, he is the richest or second richest man in the world. So he's an oligarch charging people $8 to use a platform. Talk about inflation. It used to be free. Now it costs $8 to have a blue check. I don't need the blue check. Alex, you're on Twitter often, right?
Yeah, I've lost my blue check, but I think I'm kind of proud. Like, I feel like now if you lose your blue check, it's just a badge of pride that you're not going to pay this schmuck to use Twitter. I have to say, I'm on Twitter in just less and less because it's like, especially without any way of verifying where information is coming from. I thought it was so interesting that all of the news organizations have also decided they're not going to pay for verification because they said that Twitter as a tool, there's no way with the purchasing of blue check marks, it's completely pointless because you really just can't tell who's real or who's not or who actually has information. You can't hold anybody accountable. So I don't know. I am all about just soaking in the deliciousness of seeing Elon Musk's stupid rockets explode. He's getting everything that he deserves. And spending less time on Twitter just because now you can't rely on anything.
It's a theory. You don't use Twitter much, do you? You're muted. Atheer, you're muted. I can't hear you.
I thought you were saying I'm muted on Twitter. I was like,
no,
am I? Okay, I did not have a blue check.
I blocked you on Twitter, but no, go ahead.
I'll just be telling people I had a blue check, but then I lost it. But as far as like rooting for Elon Musk's failures, I mean, it's tricky because you're seeing this like waste of resources and you're seeing what he's doing and you're like, you kind of like at least want some sort of advancements in technology if he's going to be doing this. But I don't know. Also watching him talk is so cringe. It's like watching somebody do like the worst open mic ever because he's like always doing these like off-color jokes and then you're like, oh my God, like just stick to what you know. But
I'm hoping the AI robots turn on him at some point and just, they're like, the robots have taken Elon Musk away. I'm like, well, this happens, what can you do? Like some Tesla machine just comes and takes Elon Musk and flies him. Maybe eats him. That'd be kind of cool.
I think he is the robot. I mean, have you watched him speak? Maybe he's been working on this and he is the AI version
of himself or whatever it was that we think he's supposed to be.
Right.
When Google talked about their AI running amok, it was actually just a robot Elon Musk wreaking havoc on all of us or something.
Like our last AI bought Twitter. We don't know what to say. He's out there with fake money.
But the thing that's so infuriating, and I was just having this conversation the other day because I saw this conservation ad where Matt Damon is part of some water organization trying to get water to like all these other countries that don't have water, but there's like a loan program where they're like giving people in these countries money to do this stuff. And when you see things like Elon Musk, who spend millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to do this foolishness that he really has nothing, truthfully, when you think about it, why are you investing in space? Like, what do you really think you're going to do? And you think that whatever exploded yesterday could pay for the water fixed in Flint, you know? And then you could get Wi-Fi to the Appalachian Mountains so those people don't be, sitting up there with all that foolishness, not getting news and information. You could be doing really positive things in the world with that kind of money than acting like a 5-year-old who just got a toy rocket. And so when I see that, I laugh with glee, but then I'm like, oh, what a waste. What a waste.
That's a good point. Because even if he succeeds, he's like, oh, we're going to send people up to the moon. I'm like,
why?
That's recreations for other wealthy people. Like,
exactly.
It's not helping humanity. There's no you don't say there's some humanity help somewhere buried in. It's so rich people can go to space.
It's like people say, I summer in Vermont. They're going to be like, I'm mooning,
That's right. I'll be at the moon. I'll be mooning. And then on the moon, there'll be like better areas of the moon to go to. Like, oh, what crater? Not that nice. We stayed there 2 years ago. It wasn't the best. It was a draft the whole time.
And then it's like, and then to create a whole other caste system to be living on that planet. It's like, I ain't going to the moon. That's what I wanted to say when, what's his name from ABC, Michael Strahan, when he went up in the Amazon rocket and he came back. I was like, brother, trust me, you ain't going up into space to just hang out. They're gonna put you to work. So why you excited about going up in space with these people? You ain't got Jeff Bezos money. What you think you're gonna be doing with him?
Not many of us do. So let's talk about who's got money now. Dominion Software is almost 800 million of Fox News' money. First of all, a lot of people in the news are like, well, Fox News didn't even apologize to Dominion. Yeah, they apologize 800 million times. You can say whatever you want about me. You give me 800 million, that's the apology. That's all I need. I couldn't believe it was like George Stephanopoulos and Jake Tapper. They didn't get the apology they wanted. Yeah, they got $800 million. That was what they were about. This was not I'm a lawyer. When I litigated, I didn't care if you apologize at the end. My client's like, well, we lost the case, but we got an apology. You did a great job, Dean. That never happens. Like, you won the case. Who gives a crap what the other side says? But Alex, did Fox News need to apologize? Like, did it mean anything to anyone if they apologized to their viewers? To us?
I do feel like this was dissatisfying as an American who feels like Fox is totally messing with all of our elections and just in general increasing hate in this country and division. And so I feel like it would have been meaningful to see this go to trial, also for Fox to have to actually issue a substantial apology, because in the grand scheme of Fox, I think that the amount of money that Dominion won or won in the settlement is like less than half of what they originally asked for. So I feel like
you can ask for anything. That's as a lawyer, the number. But in the big picture, though, last quarter Fox made about $300 million in net profits last quarter, and they have $4 billion in cash they're sitting on. So this is meaningful, but not.
Yeah, I would have liked, I want to see Tucker Carlson having to apologize on air. I want them having to acknowledge how bad this was. So I see why Dominion as a business, they're probably just making whatever business decision they want to make, but it just feels very dissatisfying as someone who has witnessed an assault on democracy here on the part of Fox News. I want them to actually have to say how wrong they were on air and actually apologize more than this.
And to be held accountable for something. Apologizing, they can apologize, and I'm sure they're not doing it for the right reasons. It's just like, what do you do? It's like their publicist was like, you should probably apologize. It's just like when,
But for me, it just goes back to the same, and I mean the same fucking lesson when it comes to all of these particular events, is that people are not being held accountable.
Right.
It's like, I'm, whoever it was that got their 886 million trillion badillions out, whoever's going to get that check, fabulous, happy for you. That's really great for you. But the idea that you are so short-sighted enough to not care about the impact of what really has gone down to me is what's awful. And because you've allowed I'm sure that those Fox lawyers did everything they could, because they knew that if they had to go to trial, there was going to be a whole lot of messy shit that was going to come falling out that they could not stop from falling. And so they this stopgap measure is great. But the person who's going to say that I'm going to let you slide, you should say to them, however, I'm going to take this money, but somebody in this office needs to say, I'm sorry to either America,
Right.
say I am sorry to those stupid Fox listeners that keep watching us stuff repeatedly every day, to let them know that they are being duped. Because see, even with this, they can still continue to pretend that none of the stuff that they believe, that they keep hearing, is really going to ever be false. And they're never going to doubt it either. That's the other part. Because at least if they could doubt some of the stuff that they're hearing, it might change the way that they think and the way that they act and the way that they vote. But if you're taking even that away from them, you've, again, going back to critical thinking, you're not allowing people to critically think for themselves. And so, bravo, Dominion, you could take a bitch out to lunch if you love me. Because you got enough money, you know what I'm saying?
Put them in touch with you, Keith.
Thank you. I did out with some really cute executive I wouldn't be mad with, but at the same time, it's like you're just still a part of the problem, because you have not you're not helping to facilitate a better world by this action. It's like, yeah, you got embarrassed because they called your machines cheats and they dragged your name through the mud, and that's really unfortunate. However, it's a bunch of liars that dragged your name through the mud. It's a major press outlet of sorts that's dragged your name through the mud. And it's like, and you should have more than just money on your mind. You need to not only have your reputation, but you should also think about the impact of what you're doing, because you are a large corporation in this world. But again, what do I know? I'm just some black queen living in the Bronx. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that should be your show. That should be black queen living in the Bronx. Do you know any Fox News viewers? Do you know any people that do watch Fox News a lot?
Only for fun.
Do you know any?
I don't think so. I mean, it wasn't what it used to be. I think I remember back in the day, my parents watching it along with everything else, but it wasn't what it this bad.
It didn't evolve into this. It evolved into this.
No, because I was getting at, Alex, I don't know if you know of any, but if you talk to Fox News viewers, they'll repeat what they learn on that network. I don't think they even care if it's true or not, because they
exactly
watch entertainment. I mean, the reason Fox News lied to their audience, as we learned from all the texts and emails that were released, is their audience wanted to be lied to. They want to be told Donald Trump won. They didn't want to be told the truth. That's all, because they don't watch Fox to learn. They watch Fox to feel good, to be validated, that kind of stuff. So it's deeper. So it's not like I can get on and scream, Donald Trump lost, you morons. They're like, that guy, I don't know who that was, but he said something. No, they're like, who cares? So he lost, so he won. It's not about that to them. It's something, it's the gang, the clan, if we want to call it, whatever you want to say.
Well, it's combined stupidity along with a lot of hatred that is unjustified, and a lot of fear that is unjustified. And as long as they can keep tapping into that fear and they can tap into that hatred, they are going to continue to do what they're doing. And so, again, like I said earlier, at some point, somebody going to just have to have the real conversation. Just have a real. Just have a real.
They're a big business. It's like Succession with none of the fun. It's like a bad, do you guys watch Succession, by the way? Any of you guys watch?
No, I don't. I can't watch more white people with money. I don't care. I just
this is a good show, though.
I just can't.
Atheer, do you watch Succession?
I've watched the first few, the half of the first season, but everyone's obsessed with it. I know. Everyone says it's really,
which is totally turning me off of it now. You know what I mean?
That's what it is. That's why I've never seen Game of Thrones either, because everyone's just talking about it constantly.
You're a weirdo. I don't like you.
Yeah.
It's like that and Mad Men. Remember the Mad Men craze?
Yeah.
Alex, do you watch Succession?
I've also watched maybe the first half of the first season.
What's wrong with everybody? What about Ted Lasso?
I keep on.
You watch Ted Lasso?
I love Ted Lasso. Yes,
Ted Lasso.
I love Ted Lasso.
And that's ending too. This is both show my favorite drama and my favorite comedy coming to an end. But
you have to move on. You got to move on, Dean.
By the way, I was at Sesame Street. Me and Maysoon, who Atheer knows, spoke. It's Arab American Heritage Month, and they talked about how the guy from Ted Lasso, Roy, Brett Goldstein is his name. was he did a thing with Oscar. I don't know if you saw it, went viral. They just they grunted at each other like that kind of stuff. But he's going to be their guest of honor at their big dinner in May, and he's going to do some stuff with them. So I guess Ted Lasso really is over, because he had told him last year when he did stuff in the studios that when Ted Lasso's over, I'll come back, we'll do some stuff together. So he is doing stuff. I'm like, oh, so while they gave me a Cookie Monster doll too. I'm not to get into it. Cookies. Before we wrap up here on a fun note, do you guys have a favorite Muppet?
Animal.
Animal. Interesting.
Animal.
Yeah.
I loved
drums on
Animal with the
them.
drums.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if I've Atheer, what
I
about you?
loved them.
I guess Miss Piggy has always been my favorite.
But that's ironic because you're Muslim and it's pork.
I know. That's why, because we don't eat them.
So you couldn't eat
So you can appreciate it.
So you're mesmerized by this talking haram.
I again, I love Animal, but I also have evolved into, you remember Janice?
I've become her. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Well, I'll tell you this, you guys can't see it in the picture though. The Count, remember the Count?
Yes, the Count. Yeah.
Arab. I'm pretty sure he's Arab. Do you see the way he looks? He looks like Jamie Farr. He looks like Casey Kasem. Even like Rami Youssef a little bit. He's got the eye. I think one eyebrow. Well, you guys have
that's because he does math. You're like, he's a count. He must be Arab.
He could be, right?
Exactly.
He's engineering, on the way to engineer, clearly studying engineering, right? That's
one. It was forced into it.
3. So where can people, as we wrap up here, Keith, if people want to follow you and find out more about your work or take you to Din Din, where can they?
They can do me, find me, well, they call me personally, but I'm at Comedy Daddy on the Twitter and KeithPriceComic.com online. That's where the presence is.
And Alex Berg, what about you, my friend?
It's Alex Berg everywhere. It's alexberg.com. It's Alex Berg on Twitter, even though I'm there less and less.
And Atheer Yacoub, whose new album comes out, Denied Entry, this week. Where can people find out more about you?
You can follow me at Atheer Yacoub, and then on Wednesday night I'm having a comedy show and album release party at Blind Barber at 7:30. So
Wednesday?
Wednesday night. Yeah.
Oh shit, I'm working.
Well, I work, but maybe after work.
Someone come out. Yeah, it's 7:30 till like late. Yeah, so if you can make it, come by.
I sleep at 9:30, so that's kind of weird. Okay, in any event, you guys have been great. I really appreciate your time. We're going to take a break, come back with more of the show after this. And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Friday, April 21st. First of all, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you being here. Love to hear from you over the weekend. Dean@deanofradio.com. That's my email, dean@deanofradio.com. Or go check out my new website. You can fill out a form right there, deanofradio.com. Sign up for my newsletter. Coming up next, our buddy John Fugel saying, don't go anywhere. Remember, if you want democracy, if you want freedom, stay active. Have a great night. Talk to you Monday right here on the Dean Obeidallah Show.